The next couple of days, the WNBA players are going to decide if they want to go on strike. And if they decide to go on strike, apparently that could be the end of the WNBA. The WNBA cannot come back from this.
So people thought Angel Reese was insane last year when she said, yeah, CBA's coming up. We deserve more. Because I'm hearing if y'all don't give us what we want, we sitting out. What are you, crazy? Sit out and crush all the momentum from Caitlin Clark? Well, guess what? Just this week, W players voted yes on a strike. Not on strike yet, but it's official.
The WNBA is just days from total collapse. A shocking 98% of players voted yes on a strike, threatening to kill the league, not ratings down dead, but gone. Sources claim the league cannot recover. Angel Reese was dismissed as crazy last year for threatening a sit-out. Now her warning echoes with terrifying clarity. The league everyone waited 28 years to see take off, finally getting mainstream attention, could literally cease to exist. Players themselves are about to pull the trigger on its demise, even amidst its most successful season ever.
24 hours, the WNBA could be dead. Not dead like, oh, the ratings are down dead. I'm talking about the league that just had the most successful season in its history. The league that finally got mainstream attention. The league that everybody's been waiting 28 years to see take off. That league might literally cease to exist. And the craziest part, the players are the ones that are about to pull the trigger. Because right now, as I'm recording this, WNBA players are literally 1 day away from potentially going.
This situation feels deeply off. Headlines trumpet league success and momentum, yet this strike vote tells a different story. What if celebration wasn't proof of success, but camouflage for a desperate decision? Applause kept coming, numbers stopped adding up, then the league's future went quiet. The moment the WNBA finally achieved its decades-long dream of mainstream attention, its foundation began cracking from the inside.
On the same page, but if this happens, it could be the end of the WNBA as we know it. Because other leagues are popping up saying, hey, you don't like the W? Come play here. We'll pay you more.
Oh, I would let them. If I was the WNBA, I would let any players that wanted to go play in this other league play in that league, because if we couldn't make money as the WNBA, literally the WNBA, you're going to take the same players that we had and you're going to find a way to make money. I would watch and see what they do. And if it does work out, I would use their business model and reopen the.
So what are WNBA stars fighting about? Money, but it's more complicated than a simple raise. It's not just how much players get paid, but how and what piece of the pie they believe they're owed. Players receive a mere 9 to 10% of league revenue. Supermax in 2025 was under $250,000, average salaries around $120,000, minimums barely hitting $66,000. These aren't starvation wages, but demand for a radically different financial structure is tearing the league apart.
Bro, this is getting crazy, and these people are actually delusional. I made a video a couple of days ago talking about the WNBA, and 97% of the WNBA players said that they were going to go on strike if they weren't paid what they were owed. Now, the average amount that a WNBA player makes is like $120,000 a year, which I think is good for a league that doesn't make any money. But the WNBA came to the table and said, okay, for you guys to play another season, we're willing to pay you, on average, the new wage would be $540,000.
Caitlin Clark single-handedly changed the league's financial gravity overnight. Games that once struggled for audience suddenly looked primetime, even though she didn't play in, as the entire league caught a second-hand buzz. Viewership didn't just rise, it leapt, bringing the WNBA decades of long-sought mainstream attention. But admitting one player dramatically altered the league's financial reality forced uncomfortable math onto the table. Math that doesn't care about feelings or social media. It just blinked, asking why revenue surge didn't translate into profit. This was the Kira question.
Okay, so what are the WNBA stars actually fighting about? Well, it's simple. They're only fighting about money. And that's a way to simplify everything, but it's way more complicated than that. See, it's not just about how much the players get paid, it's about how they get paid. And this is where things get really interesting. Right now, WNBA players get about 9 to 10% of league revenue. The league's supermax salary in 2025 was $249,244. The average salary was $120,000. The minimum was just $66,000.
Here's the brutal truth. Despite this explosion of attention, the WNBA still loses money. Not a little, but a lot. And somehow, in the very year viewership skyrocketed, losses hit new highs. This feels impossible until you grasp that spending grew just as fast as often faster than revenue. Much new spending had nothing to do with expanding audience, but upgrading the lifestyle and optics of a league that hadn't yet proven it could stand on its own financially.
That's all I have in me today. We have been covering this WNBA CBA stuff from the beginning, and it's exhausting. It's absolutely exhausting. It never feels like we are getting anywhere. I never feel like I have good updates for you guys, and I'm getting tired of the fact that I also feel like every time I sit down, I'm complaining about something, and that's just not my personality. I'm not going to continue to sit here and complain about something or rant about something or be angry about something and not be able to make a change in something.
A prime example of escalating spending is the demand for private flights. This became the ultimate symbol, not because travel safety isn't important, but what it represented. A league that has never turned a profit, now demanding one of the most expensive perks in professional sports. This isn't shrewd negotiation, it's a financial stress test the WNBA cannot afford. Private flights sound glamorous until you crunch numbers. One flight there, one back, multiplied by teams, staff, and an entire season. The cost balloons into a sum that could have funded substantial salary increases.
The unrivaled league and the ratings are an embarrassment. They're a statement about how little interest there actually is in women's basketball beyond Caitlin Clark. The fact that they can't reach a CBA agreement and be confident that there's actually going to be a 2026 season of the WNBA because these idiots, Angel Reese and the rest are like, oh man, if y'all not paying us $1 million, $2 million a season, we're not playing. They've offered these idiots.
The irony here is almost too painful. Flying commercial, inconvenient as it sounds, helps connect players to the very fans they desperately need. Visibility creates loyalty, allowing genuine interactions. Distance creates mystique. And mystique isn't always your friend when a league fights for relevance and tries to grow a dedicated fan base. By demanding isolation, players risk severing a vital link to the public, a public that ultimately funds their salaries through viewership and ticket sales. This decision was about optics over genuine connection.
These WNBA players said that that's still not enough, and if you don't pay us, there's a rival league that we're going to get paid out to go to, and they're going to compete with you directly. Now, the numbers just came out for this supposed rival league, really the only thing that gave them even an inkling of leverage in this negotiation. Their numbers just came out, and it turns out they lost 65% of their viewership in the year of 2025. So now they just have nowhere to go. 65% drop, WNBA players begging for old...
The WNBA actually came to the table with a staggering offer to avert this crisis. They proposed a new average wage for players of $540,000 per season, a monumental jump from the previous $120,000. For a league that doesn't make money, this was a historic proposal. Yet, players' response was not cautious optimism, it was outright outrage. This dramatically improved offer was treated like an insult, signaling that the core issue was no longer just about fairness, but control. This situation crossed from ambitious to dangerously explosive.
I think there's a miss over there at the WNBA with a big shakeup on the horizon. And from the looks of it, the women over there are on the verge of losing absolutely everything due to pure arrogance, if not ego. And it's sort of like within the modern dating marketplace today, some of these women out here wildly overestimating who they are or the value that they are actually providing to a man. All right. So over the past several years, it's been one name and one name only that has put in the WNBA on its back. And that name is Caitlin Clark.
A major factor fueling players' resolve was the perceived leverage of rival leagues popping up, promising more money and better conditions. Players believed they had a ready-made escape route, a lucrative alternative where they could get paid out if the WNBA didn't meet demands. This external pressure was seemingly the only real bargaining chip they held. The idea was simple: if you don't like the W, come play here. We'll pay you more. This rival threat seemingly gave them an inkling of power in what should have been a very weak negotiating position for a league still deeply in the red.
Share with you guys the most recent letter that was issued from the WNBPA. At midnight, the 2020 WNBA collective bargaining agreement will expire. Despite demonstrating our willingness to compromise in order to get a deal done, the WNBA and its teams have failed to meet us at the table with the same spirit and seriousness. Instead, they've remained committed to undervaluing player contributions, dismissing player concerns, and running out the clock. Today's display of an inflatable rat, a universal symbol of labor protest outside of the NBA store, calls attention to how the league and its teams have handled these negotiations.
Then came the crushing revelation that evaporated their leverage overnight. Numbers for this supposed rival league were released, exposing a devastating truth: a monumental 65% drop in viewership in 2025 alone. This wasn't just a setback, it was a near collapse. Suddenly, players' perceived alternative dissolved. The rival league, once a beacon of hope, proved an empty promise. Now, with their main threat nullified, WNBA players find themselves with virtually nowhere else to go. Their biggest bargaining chip became their biggest embarrassment, removing all pressure.
It's early. It's too early for this, chat. Put a 1 in the chat if you agree. I think if the WNBA let them titties fly and put an 8-foot rim so women could straight, you know what I'm saying? Titties just straight flopping. More people would watch, dude. I would watch a topless NBA with an 8-foot rim. Women just straight, yeah. Female Vince Carter's just double through the leg, just yeah. Like most of these women are 6'5" anyways. You just put your hand up and it's a dunk. I don't know why they think that we should pay them more when nobody.
A strike, despite its symbolic power, carries devastating real-world consequences. It doesn't just reduce your paycheck, it completely erases it. Zero is not leverage. Zero is a cliff. While the biggest names with lucrative endorsements and off-court options might afford to stand at that edge, the vast majority of the roster, the average players, cannot. They become collateral damage in a high-stakes war fought with moral language, but delivering very real economic consequences. Their careers and financial stability hang precariously as their future vanishes.
Marie's been too busy being a pop icon, I guess, showing them cheeks off on her Instagram. Nevertheless, what we're here today to do is to analyze the arrogance and also the delusion within the comparison of the NBA or the expectations of men, right? And also to do a deep dive into the misunderstanding of business. So this is going to be an interesting conversation, one of which I intend to have a lot.
This dramatic situation isn't merely a logical negotiation gone awry. Resentment has clearly entered the room. Once that emotion takes hold, logic often leaves. Statements hardened, positions froze, and what should have been a back and forth transformed into a dangerous staring contest, where both sides pretended blinking was a sign of weakness. The league put numbers on the table that would have sounded absurd just a few years ago. Historic jumps in average salaries and a future that, while imperfect, looked exponentially better than the past. But it was met with outrage, not even cautious optimism. The centerpiece of this standoff is revenue sharing, a phrase that sounds noble until you unpack its implications. Revenue sharing means splitting income, not profit. This distinction is critical. It ties player pay directly to the league's financial performance. This model works beautifully in leagues that consistently generate robust profits. However, it becomes problematic in leagues like the WNBA, which has historically survived on external subsidies, optimism, and the hope of future success. They want the upside without acknowledging the very real downside. Critics now openly call players' stance pure arrogance, if not ego. There's strong sentiment that some women in the league are wildly overestimating their actual value to the sport and misunderstanding fundamental business realities. This isn't about undervaluing talent, it's a complete disconnect from the financial viability of the enterprise they're demanding more from. The narrative suggests a profound misunderstanding of how a business operates, especially one yet to prove it can stand on its own 2 feet. This hubris, some argue, now threatens to burn down the entire house. History offers a chilling warning. Sports leagues simply do not bounce back easily from strikes, especially those still fighting for cultural oxygen. One lost season doesn't mean fans wait patiently. They move on. They fill their time with other leagues, other compelling storylines, and other heroes. Baseball learned this devastating lesson in the 1990s and never fully recovered its throne. That was baseball, a giant. The WNBA, a league still battling for relevance and financial stability, has absolutely no margin for error in this high-stakes gamble. What often gets lost is the inherent fragility of growth phases. Every successful league endured an awkward, difficult stage. Money was tight, perks limited, and patience mandatory. Skipping this crucial stage doesn't fast-track success. It invariably collapses the structure before it hardens. You cannot build a penthouse on a foundation that hasn't even had time to properly dry. This critical step in development is being ignored at the league's peril, jeopardizing its entire future. A dangerous assumption now floats. If the WNBA pauses, its newfound audience will patiently wait, refreshing screens, holding their breath out of unshakable loyalty. But that's a profound misunderstanding of modern sports attention. Attention is ruthless. It moves on instantly, unapologetically. One missed season doesn't register as a pause to fans. It feels like a definitive cancellation. The casual fan, the very demographic the WNBA just started to capture, will simply find something else, and winning them back will be almost impossible. The saddest part of this unfolding drama, the WNBA finally had leverage that didn't require threats. Numbers were talking, merchandise was flying, expansion interest was real. The smartest play would have been to leverage this organic momentum to lock in long-term stability, prove financial profitability, and then renegotiate from undeniable strength. Instead, everything is being gambled on the perilous belief that momentum, once gained, simply cannot be lost. A catastrophic miscalculation that could cost them everything. Meanwhile, alternative leagues waiting aren't villains or saviors. They are just businesses chasing opportunity. They promise the moon because promises are cheap at launch. What they cannot promise, however, is longevity, genuine visibility, or enduring cultural relevance. History is littered with forgotten leagues that started loud and ended quietly, leaving players scrambling and fans confused about what truly mattered. Splitting the talent pool only fragments women's basketball, weakening its overall draw and making it harder for anyone to succeed. If this strike happens, the aftermath won't be dramatic as expected. No instant explosion, no immediate collapse. Instead, there will be a chilling silence. Schedules wiped clean, conversations about games fading, and the precious hard-won momentum simply leaking away week by week until any comeback feels hypothetical instead of inevitable. This is how leagues truly die now, not with furious rage, but with profound indifference. By the time everyone realizes the vital leverage is gone, it will be far too late to ever recreate it. You cannot manufacture organic interest twice. The cultural moment, the perfect storm of attention, is a fleeting gift. You get one chance when culture leans in, captivated and ready to invest its time and emotion. That's what makes this situation so uncomfortable. Not because players want more, but because the timing could not be more catastrophic. They're mistaking a singular moment of growth for permanent, unshakable stability, a distinction that has doomed countless ventures. The window of opportunity is narrow and closing fast. Ultimately, this isn't about dignity versus dollars. It's a starker choice, long-term survival for the entire league versus short-term self-defeating posturing. One path demands swallowing frustration, exercising strategic patience, and playing a demanding, unglamorous long game of steady growth. The other path feels incredibly powerful and vindicating now, but holds the almost certain promise of catastrophic consequences later. If the league genuinely shuts down, even temporarily, the explanation won't be complicated. It will be brutally simple. It will be remembered as the moment when fleeting growth was tragically mistaken for permanence, and perceived leverage was fatally confused with invincibility. Leagues do not die when nobody cares. They die when everyone cares intensely, but tragically at the wrong time, making the wrong move. That grave assumption, that caring would simply be enough to sustain them, has ended more sports leagues than any lack of talent ever could. The WNBA is at a crossroads, where the next few days determine if it writes a new chapter of strategic resilience or closes the book on a dream 28 years in the making.